Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of HR Heretics. So this episode with Jason James from Tezi briefly vanished from Spotify. Don't ask us why. I think the content overlords are trying to cancel me again. But it's too good to not share again. So here's Jason unpacking the future of recruiting. I hope you guys enjoy it. So Jason, you're kind of like a legend in the product game. And now you founded a recruiting company called Tezi. Tell us what Tezi is and what does like a legendary product guy know about recruiting?
Legendary. Um, what is Tezi? We offer agentic recruiting labor for the more mundane aspects of recruiting. So that covers things like inbound review, sourcing, screening, scheduling. We also include a basic ATS that's more useful to like early stage companies, but not so sophisticated for like later stage. And it also comes with 750 million global profiles. So it's a very like all-in-one solution, especially for early companies just starting out. Then what do I know about recruiting? I guess a bit over time. So I've been hiring for my teams since 2004. I've made about 300 hires for my teams over the years. That's 12 years without recruiting support. So doing a lot of the legwork myself, and then about 9 years with recruiting support. I've worked with teams of 1 to 100 recruiters. I think that's about 70 recruiters that I've worked with directly between agencies, contractors, in-house. And yeah, founded a recruiting tech company 2 years ago and spent the last 2 years talking to a ton of recruiters as well.
Okay. So I've been like digging into Tezi and watching a bunch of your podcasts. And one of the things I was really intrigued by is Max. So can you give the audience like a quick high level of what is Max?
Yeah, so Max is the name of our AI agent that does recruiting on behalf of typically in-house talent teams at tech companies, though it doesn't have to be that exclusively. And companies send the like more rote, busy work, mundane aspects of recruiting to Max so that they can focus on the more differentiated and human aspects of recruiting, which are like setting up the process strategically and building rapport, making offers, interviewing, that sort of thing. Whereas Max takes on things like building the sourcing list of candidates, writing emails for them, fielding replies, screening those inbound applicants, both at reviewing the applications as well as a quick chat screen, scheduling next steps, all of that just moves to AI, which we think AI is very well suited to handle these types of things.
I went deep on one of the posts describing how Max like scans and surfaces top applicants at companies that have like hundreds or even thousands of applications. Like this was always a huge problem for us at every company I've worked at because typically you can't even get through all of the buckets. So I've
Right.
been waiting for software to do this, but one of the primary concerns I hear from practitioners is AI bias. So
Yeah.
how do you think about solving that problem?
It's a fair concern. And so it's something that we've spent a good deal of time and effort to address. I think it's important, not everybody understands the human equivalent of what happens. To set a benchmark of the way it happens presently with humans, most of the time that inbound application bucket doesn't get reviewed. And it's not out of any ill will, but if you have limited hours in your day as a recruiter, it kind of just makes more sense to go out and source rather than find the 2 or 3% that's going to be a great fit in the inbound application pile. And so, for the most part, nothing happens, which is unfortunate and not fair. And then when it does happen, it's really fast and cursory, typically, because the bandwidth constraints of humans is tough. So then, how do we do it differently with AI? Well, AI will go through all of them. So it will crush through 3,000 inbound applicants in a matter of minutes. We remove name, photo, really any like demographic information. So Max isn't aware of these things. It doesn't have a concept of like gender or race. And what it's evaluating is objective matching relative to the criteria that the company sets forward. We've had Max bias audited as part of compliance with New York Law 144. So New York requires two protected classes, it's gender and race. We have monthly anti-bias audits starting next month with Warden AI, which will be for the 18 protected classes mentioned in the new California law. So this sets, I think, a much higher standard than what humans are even held to, because also the AI is very transparent about its rationale, whereas humans may not necessarily know like how they're evaluating, and there's all sorts of unconscious subtle biases at play, whereas the AI will tell you exactly why it thinks a person's a fit, why it's not a fit, and it doesn't have really anything to hide.
Yeah, the analog there is like Waymo versus a human driver, right? Like Waymo is obviously way safer than humans, but it's probably still going to get in accidents. It's eventually going to kill somebody, but it's going to be at such a smaller rate. But because it's a robot,
Yeah,
we're very uncomfortable with that, right?
right, right. Yeah.
A question I get a lot from folks is both internal companies like Tezi and also external, like to your customers, is there should be an element of human something on top of it, right? Like the question is this 100% trustworthy, Jason? Do I have to have someone on my team kind of edit this, look at it, QA it? Do you all have any human interventions at Tezi to help you with this? Yeah, that's kind of something that I think people are a little confused about out there with the emergence of all these tools.
Yeah, no, it's a good call out. One key point is that like Max, our AI agent, it doesn't make any decisions like in terms of advance or reject. All it does is provide recommendations. And so it would say, this person seems like a fit and should advance. This person does not seem like a fit. But ultimately, a human is always making the call to advance or reject when it comes to any type of stage. One is like the laws in some jurisdictions, but two, we just think safer and better for everybody right now is to have that sort of second line QA done by humans.
Yeah. Gotcha.
I saw two things on LinkedIn today around these like one-way dynamic AI-based interviews. So the idea here is kind of a similar problem set. So many applicants at the top end of the funnel, nobody's looking at the bucket. How do we actually go in and qualify?
Yeah.
Some of these solutions now, Wall Street Journal had an article today, which was like your interview is now with AI. And so you go through, you fill out the application, you submit your resume, and then at some point in time, you're met with a link which takes you to this AI-based interview. The person who I saw on LinkedIn today actually like walked back their experiment, was like, hey, it didn't work, which surprised me. What's your take on that aspect of introducing AI at the top of the funnel in an interview format?
Well, we've created Max to have screening capabilities, which is comparable to the recruiter phone screen in what it tries to cover, which is a level of just kind of pre-qualification before the team spends time with this person. Let's try and get some of the basics out of the way of work eligibility, your work location preferences, compensation, why are you on the market? And then the candidate gets a chance to get their questions asked and answered on whatever's top of mind for them. If it's things like, what's the team size? What's your fundraising or your last fundraising round, these types of things. And so the company will provide context and then Max can answer those questions for candidates. Now, we don't think it's all that evaluative, like most candidates will pass that session, but it does help bring more color to these applicants and weed out the ones that just like clearly cannot work here because they don't have certain qualifications. We predominantly work right now in the tech industry, and we think that's the right application. Whereas you get deeper into the process, passive candidates especially, they want to interact with humans. It's a bi-directional evaluation of like, do I actually want to work here? Do I want to work with these people? And so I think it's in the company's interest to have a person on the other end. Now, there's probably lower consideration industries where you could have AI doing more of the interviewing, but that's not the space that we operate in. And I don't think that's going to be true, in the tech industry for many years, we'll say.
Yeah, it feels like in order for it to be true, it could only work for inbound applicants, and you really have to explain why this is better for the candidate experience. But it's such a behavior change right now that I feel like most companies are very scared of introducing that.
Yeah. So with our solution, it gets most often applied to the inbound applicants. Very few are screening their source candidates. And for the inbound applicants, let's say there were 3,000 that came through. Max says about 100 of them are a fit. Then they go through screening and, okay, actually 40 clear the screening because some dropped out because they didn't even complete it, and then some complete it. And so then they get 40 candidates that are like, okay, yeah, these seem pre-qualified. We're interested in a person spending time with these folks, when that would have been zero otherwise. And it's trying to make that clear for both parties that like you're deriving value where there wouldn't have been value derived.
Are you stack ranking those people?
Not presently. So it would just be based on who completes the screening. And then once the screening is completed, then it would be, okay, Max recommends or doesn't recommend, but a human reviews that.
Yeah, and then it's like chronological based off of when they applied.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Nolan, you mentioned kind of a lot of folks are scared of implementing, right, this. I also get a lot of questions on a lot of folks are feeling overwhelmed and excited, but also overwhelmed at all the AI tools across recruiting that are popping up, Jason. Like, how do you think about that? And then I get, talk to founders. Well, it's a race. All these tools are somewhat similar. Maybe they Venn diagram overlap, but it's a race to see who can kind of figure this out first and get to market. And I'm hearing that in different industries, whether it's legal tech or recruiting or this or AI. How would you help the audience think about that? And how do you think about that?
It is a very difficult environment, both as, I guess, an offerer of services to differentiate, as well as for a buyer to figure out signal from noise. Our strategy where we differentiate will be try to be more all-in-one than point solution. And that's hard to execute with a high quality bar, is to be like good across like many features. But companies seem to have little tolerance right now for adding point solutions. And so we try to be pretty holistic. And then we skew towards like automation and agentic labor more than Copilot. Now we have backed into some Copilot features, but we are a solution for those that are really feeling like underwater. They have way too much to do, too little time to do it, and they need capacity on their recruiting labor. Whereas if you're just looking for like 10% efficiencies or 20% efficiencies on a human recruiter's workflow, gosh, there's dozens, maybe hundreds of tools right now that can probably achieve that. So it's a tough environment.
But I want to agree, and I don't know if you agree, Nolan, but the all-in-one differentiator, it's always been like that for me. Like I remember talking to a founder back in 2016 who was building, like an analytics HR platform. And I said, listen, the person who figures out how to help me do end to end with the least amount of tools as possible wins.
The reason why that's true, Kelly, is because it's easier. Typically, like especially with an ATS, it's a system of record. And so you want your system of record to be like the thing that you're going back to all the time and things that are working on top of it. The challenge is, as Jason mentioned, it's hard to be really good at many different things. And then the other challenge is like, Microsoft famously bundles and will get you in on a cheap discount. And then, when renewal comes up, it becomes a lot more expensive. And typically down the road, if you're growing as a company, now your challenge is like, well, God, it's going to take forever to offboard and implement something new. And so I think about this challenge all the time. I talk to friends about it. I'm currently in the camp of, because primarily where AI is today, of experimenting with everything and seeing what's going on with everything. And just hoping at one point in time, somebody could come in and be the all-in-one. But I mean, Jason, how hard is that? You guys are early stage. Like that's got to be like impossible.
It's quite hard. Yeah. So we hire almost exclusively staff and senior staff level engineers. We give them whatever AI that they want to be able to add capacity for them. But yeah, it's the challenge.
Hey everyone, we'll be right back in a moment after a word from our sponsors. On this show, we tell the truth about HR. And one of my favorite conversations we've had was with Melanie Naranjo. She put it so simply: HR isn't about optimizing for compliance. It's optimizing for people, for culture, trust, and workplaces where folks actually want to stay. That's why I'm such a fan of what Melanie and her team at Ethena are building.
She was brutally honest about it.
So Ethena, we're a compliance company, which let's just put it out there. That sounds pretty boring if you think about it, right? Okay, harassment prevention training, not very exciting, right? We are very lucky in that we are in the HR tech space that's required, right? Harassment prevention training is not really optional. You need it. The question is, who are you going to use for it?
Exactly. You're doing this training whether you want to or not. But here's what she told us about the impact.
The amount of impact that I've been able to have from the HR perspective has been just huge. It's phenomenal. We're doing all these amazing things that, quite frankly, too many companies don't do because they don't understand the power of their HR team.
Instead of boring, check-the-box training that everyone hates, Ethena delivers content that's modern and impactful. We're talking 200-plus courses in 100-plus languages with a 93% learner positivity rating to back it up. They take on all the tough topics, harassment prevention, workplace violence prevention, code of conduct, and make them actually engaging. And for HR, it's effortless. Training runs on autopilot with automated enrollments and reminders. There's even a built-in hotline and case management system to help a true speak-up culture. Look, you're going to do compliance training anyway. Why not use something that actually works and doesn't make your people want to hide under their desks? Done right, like with Ethena, compliance becomes a strategic tool. It's actually a way to reinforce your values and build a stronger workplace. Check them out at goethena.com/heretics. That's goethena, goethena.com/heretics. Get 10% off of your first year. AI changes how work gets done. Recruiting is no exception. Metaview is the AI platform purpose-built for recruiting. If you're looking to level up your AI adoption and see real impact from intake to offer, it's a no-brainer. Metaview's suite of AI agents works for you at every stage of the hiring process. Their platform powers instant job post creation, AI-powered candidate Q&A, insights on pipeline performance, compensation, and so much more. I've seen firsthand how tough it can be to extract consistently high-quality data from candidate conversations. I've been in candidate debriefs where interviewers told us about their feelings instead of what actually happened in the interview. And I've seen VPs and CEOs block hires because they didn't learn anything from skeleton scorecards. Metaview changes all of that. For every candidate in every pipeline, bring radical efficiency and precision to your hiring process with perfect data from every conversation. Metaview covers all of your compliance needs, works with all of your existing tools, and takes less than 3 minutes to set up. Join talent leaders at more than 3,000 elite companies like Brex, Deel, 11 Labs, and Quora, and check out Metaview. Just head over to metaview.ai/heretics to talk to one of Metaview's product experts or get started for free. You'll be up, running, and AI-enabled in minutes.
All right, so I went, again, as I mentioned, I went deep on your podcast, and in one you said RCs and sourcers find something else. And the reason why you said that, I believe, is because you think scheduling is going to be solved in the next couple of years and sourcing is not going to be a role. Yeah. I tend to agree with that, but how do you think about growing this like next generation of recruiters? Like I started as a recruiting coordinator. That's, if I didn't have that entry level role, there's no way that I'm doing this right now with all of my time. How do you think about that challenge?
I guess how you represented my point of view is accurate. And I'm not saying that's necessarily Tezi that like wins and, does all of sourcing and all of recruiting coordination. It's just I recognize the technology is close to being able to just do this better than, any human. And so given that, to answer your question, how do you envision the future for full life cycle recruiters? Do you think that there are more or fewer?
I think there are fewer.
5 years. Fewer?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that the entry level roles will exist, in that if you have a bunch of mid-level, senior, full cycle recruiters struggling to find fewer jobs, you need the entry level roles if you believe that there's continued growth in the field, which I question. That said, also to me, it seems like the entry level stuff already went away, in that it's largely what I've seen moved offshore. And it's like Athena's doing the jobs now in Kenya and the Philippines rather than like full-timers. So if there's going to be an entry level role, it's going to have to probably be an entry level full cycle recruiter. I just don't think that there'll be that many. And this isn't a problem exclusive to recruiting. We see it, in engineering, it's happening in product management, it's happening in sales, and it's a really tough time to be a new grad, I think.
to do as well as I'd like in my past experiences. So,
yeah, I think that'll be like each CHRO will make their own choice as to like, okay, would I rather repurpose this head with the same person? But I think they'll have more flexibility in their budgets because like
that's the
headcount
point.
and software can kind of like trade off against each other now.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I've been kind of screaming from the rooftops is people like, well, my job's going to go away. And I think it's like, no, it just changes because now we can kind of do all these things. So I offer that because that's how I've been thinking about this the past, few months.
So I talked to my buddy Evan Connors at Ambience, and him and I are, I think, working on a hypothesis together about, I actually think there's a ton of alpha to be had at the new grad level because like these kids are coming out native in AI. They have to get really, really scrappy, like a lot scrappier than we were given the constraints in the job market.
Yep.
And so you really have like your pick of the litter on them. And if you do design something like, call it a rotational program or something to where like these people can come in and try different aspects of the business, I feel like actually that might be a path in the future. We did this at Google. We had rotation programs. It was typically within people ops, but I actually think now it's going to be like across the entire business. And then somebody can come back into recruiting and have like the full business context because not only did they do recruiting, they went and like were an SDR and did some other things. So that's where I think it's ultimately going. But it's to your point, Jason, like you're only hiring senior engineers.
Yep.
And that is it's an easy lever to go to because they need less coaching.
Yeah, so we've been debating and considering hiring junior because of what you mentioned, where it's like, okay, we're like a 15-person seed stage startup. It would be hard to compete for the top 1 to 10% of talent from the new grad population in 2021. Now, there might be more top talent that's less competitive because fewer people are hiring. So maybe now is a good time to try to pick up some of them because they're still just as talented as they were. It's just, I guess, less demand for their services.
That's exactly it. So I listened to your Harry Steadings pod, which you had some banger quotes out of that one. One was people with great resumes often rode the elevator up. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so there's businesses that are formed that were always going to be successful because they're riding some long-term secular trend that it's a technology wave. So think like, okay, with the cloud and mobile paradigm shift, there was always going to be a business like Uber. There was always going to be a business like Spotify. And whether, Uber or Lyft won, that was up for debate, but there was always going to be some like taxi app on your phone. And so that elevator is going up. People that work at that company during those time periods, they can be potentially just riding that elevator and benefiting from the company's success, and it shows up as a resume success for them. Or they could actually alter and support the trajectory of that company. They could be the key contributors to the company's success. It's often hard to disambiguate those two things. I've seen founders get themselves in trouble by just like being like, oh, great resume. Like they were at this company during this time, during hypergrowth, and this company during that time. And then you find out like this person, I don't know, can't even like put together a coherent plan or roadmap or strategy. And it's like, it's just tough to learn that on, a year into making that key hire.
We've talked about this so many times, Nolan, right? Like the worry of pedigree, right?
Halo resume.
Riding coattails of, yeah, exactly.
So Jason, how do you then, if you disambiguates the word that you used, how do you think about assessing these people and understanding if they were actually part of the core contribution or not?
You find with people that are, I guess, very good and very integral, one, there's like a level of depth to like any answer that they're giving you. Like you can kind of keep digging and they are able to deliver at the 40,000, 10,000, like 100 ground level. Like they know it in and out and can speak to like all of that with clarity. That means that they were like really in the thick of it. which is helpful to suss out. I find that back channels are just invaluable. Like, go talk to a bunch of people that they worked with, both the ones they introduce you to as well as ones that they haven't, and ask around. What did they do? How did they contribute? Do you think it like really mattered for the outcome of the company? And if so, like how? And you get a bunch of valuable signal from that.
Yep.
I was just like channeling the audience. I don't know if any of you are thinking this right now, but I was just thinking, like, when is Max going to be able to tell me that?
I would love that. Yeah. We got some, like, I guess, more foundational stuff, but I do think like AI could be quite good at that, like reference checks and back channels and stuff like that. Who knows who, and like
sure.
set up a schedule,
Exactly.
schedule a call with them at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because that's like the dream, right? When can Max just put 3 people on my doorstep that are perfect for me and this company at this period of time?
Right.
100%. So say, Pod, you mentioned that at Instacart you were working 100-hour weeks and that 72 hours a week was kind of stasis. Like, Isn't that a bit much? Like, is that really true?
Yeah, that is really true. Yeah, it's not that hard to get to 72 hours. I mentioned that because this 996 culture stuff, like that's, 72 hours a week. So for me, it was like work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 5 days a week. Then a couple nights, hop back online, work for a few hours, 1 or 2 nights a week. And then like a half day on Sunday morning or something, or work fewer nights, but work all day Sunday. And like, it's not great. I'm not saying it's like fun or feels good or it's good for my relationships, but it is common and it's pretty unremarkable and often expected. And so the thing with the 996 is that people wear it like a badge of honor when back in my day, like it just was called working at a startup.
Is it like, okay, so there's 2 pieces. Well, one is, Kelly, have you heard of 007?
Like the movie?
No, 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. 7 days a week.
No, Nolan, no, I haven't heard of that.
All the hours.
Yeah. So it's like I actually like laughed at that one. I thought it was good. But like, how do you pitch that to candidates? Because, ultimately, like, I got kids. I actually think like I'm phased out of the startup era, especially early stage, because I have kids. But how do you communicate that? And then the second piece, isn't it about outputs? Like, isn't outputs the thing that we're actually measuring here?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So we're not a 996 culture. Like that's not, I was just kind of like ragging on all that really matters is the outcomes. And so I don't care how many hours like people work to do it. Like I said, then we have this fractional PM that puts in 15 hours a week and it's better than many of the PMs I've worked with at 50 hours a week. And I'm entirely happy like with that. It's like having a full-timer, but he just gets it done faster because he's very, very good. I think that's ultimately what matters. The way we set expectations, or at least try to with our folks though, is we're going to try and work smart. And so be focused, try to make decisions quickly, try to, execute with clarity. But we're also going to work hard. And everybody will have sort of their time at being like 5 out of 5 busy. For our stand-ups, that's one of the things is that we check in on is like, what did you do? What are you going to do? And then sustainability, there's like a scale of 1 to 5. What are you at? And 3 out of 5 is like, this is sustainable. I could do this forever. 4 out of 5 is like, this isn't very sustainable, but it's okay. And then 5 out of 5 is like, this is not sustainable at all. It is impinging on like my quality of life and well-being. Everybody has their 5 out of 5 moments, but like you should be there briefly, like, a couple weeks a year tops.
I love that.
I had so many thoughts on 996, Nolan. Like, we should do a segment on 996 or 007 or whatever the hell else you have. But like, I think I completely agree, Jason. I would talk to any leader that, for those leaders who are all touting 996 and 007, when you find someone that is like incredible and the outcomes are impeccable and they're not doing that, they don't say a peep.
Right.
Yeah. It's just founder porn. It's totally founder porn. They just love to talk about it. All right. So last quote from that same Stabbings pod, which was awesome. You guys should totally listen to it. Is you said that the best culture is growth because growth solves morale and retention, and culture only matters when growth slows. I totally agree. Molly Graham came on our podcast, said the exact same thing, said the best culture is winning. What's your take on this, and elaborate further, please?
Yeah, so I think that's well recapped. I think it's important to invest in culture. So I want to be clear about that because you don't know when the growth is going to slow or hit a wall and completely stop. But at the end of the day, like the company needs to be growing, like above all, because folks need a path. They need progression in their careers, and they need to feel like their equity is going to be worth something. They need to, and so it's crazy how much like growth covers sort of like a multitude of sins and solves nearly all problems. But yeah, that said, I would advise every founder to at least put in some effort on culture, to be talking about it, to like be intentional about it, because what keeps people in the hard times will be the bonds that they have with one another and their like attachment to the company, the mission, the vision, that sort of thing.
How are you guys thinking about that right now, given that you're, obviously 15 people, seed stage, it's an insanely competitive market. What's the pitch and how do you hook me with your culture?
The people that join us tend to join because the way that we are articulated our like values, some of them kind of stand out and resonate. So one of which is like committed to calm. And so by that, we don't mean we're super chill, but that we will be calm and focused and deliberate. We will avoid thrash and chaos, and we will be as steady as one can be in this sort of journey, even though we will work with like intensity. So for folks that have been through very volatile situations, that's attractive. And that comes from myself and my co-founder being old founders, basically. I'm in my 40s, he's in his 40s. We've been through like decades of stuff. And so there's a level of like resilience that we can bring and calm to the storm that we can bring. So we try to differentiate on that. We're committed to like a team of adults. And by that, we mean we will provide trust and freedom to our team. And then we expect sort of wise judgment and thoughtfulness about, what the business needs. And so there's this like mutual respect and trust and freedom and responsibility, very like Netflixy in that regard. And so these types of things tend to resonate with the folks that come join us.
I love that.
Also at our stage, like we've mostly pulled from like the all-stars of our network.
Yeah. And then there's already built-in trust. But I mean, Kelli and I talk about this all the time, that ultimately culture should serve as a magnet for the people that you want to attract and
right.
a deterrent for the people you want to avoid, right? So when you say those things to me, what I experience is like a very mature adult workplace to right. where when problems happen, we're not just like pointing fingers or scrambling, like we're being thoughtful about how we solve them and thoughtful in our communication, which I think is attractive to most adults.
Right.
Yeah. The thing I would add there, it's, it's also glue for the company when things don't go great, and I think I was going to call it out, and you already said it, Jason, is by no means were you saying not to invest in culture, because that's the glue that holds it together when kind of shit goes sideways as well.
Which always does.
Shit always does.
But yeah, what I found though is like if you optimize for culture directly, what you end up doing is kind of playing whack-a-mole on like employee complaints if you're not growing. And so what you want to be doing is you get as the highest level leaders, the business needs to be growing and succeeding, and then you kind of knock off the like top complaints here and there.
Totally.
Yeah. 100%. So what's next on the Tezi roadmap, and where can people find you?
Yeah, so what's next for us, we are launching a beta of a self-serve tier of our product. We've been sales-led historically, and so we're collecting beta signups. If anybody wants to participate, let's just have them DM me on any platform. So I'm on Twitter or X as Jason Tezi. You can find me on LinkedIn as Jason James, and would be happy to put companies into our beta as we're getting ready to launch and go big with this in a few months.
Awesome. Jason, thank you so much for the time, man. This was a blast.
Yeah,
thanks,
really
Jason.
appreciate it. Thank you both.
HR Heretics is a podcast from Turpentine, the network behind Econ 102, Moment of Zen, and Turpentine VC. Subscribe, 5 stars, share it on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, all the things.